Hello everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Velvet Lounge Life. And today I am going to talk about some of my junk journal lookbook pockets that I created, and I created all of these within 2 hours. So within 2 hours, you can get a lot done. So another disclaimer, besides how long it took me to make them, is the majority of these are made from recycled junk mail envelopes and from like vintage paper that I had left, and I just folded it so that I could create different pockets and shapes. I believe, yes, this one is actually created from an old book. So the inside, after you have like the autograph page or the author's autograph page, which is usually an empty page where it's a title page inside the book, this was a photographic page that was like after that. So yes, all of these were created by recycling. I did not buy brand new things to create them. I used things that I had on hand. I don't, and I'm not saying I'll never do this, but I'm not really into the fake antiquing of the paper, because I actually do have a collection of ephemera, which is official 80-year-old or older paper items. That's what ephemera is as far as an antique goes. And I do have vintage paper items as well. So I try to use those as much as I can. Why? Because what am I going to do with them in the future? And now is the time for me to go through my collection, weed out what I know isn't, going to have a large amount of value, and use them in projects like this, and it's super fun. So without further ado, I'm going to organize what you see, and then we will get on with this. So what we have with this one is I took an envelope, and you'll see that with the envelopes that have this background, I sort of like the design. You can see it's all these various hash marks. And so what I did is basically I took several envelopes, I flipped them inside out. So you do have to be careful when you're opening your mail, and also when you are ungluing the seams that make up the envelope. You have to be careful when you're like deconstructing it, because if you rip it too much, obviously you can't use the envelope. But what I did is turn this inside out, because like I said, like this hash mark design. And on this, I basically used lace and antique stamp from the early 1900s. She is wearing a nurse's uniform from like 1905, 1910. And the letter was postmarked 1909. And what I did is the stamp was kind of large. And so what I did is I basically cut just this part of the stamp out, because I was, going with making a version of a cameo. So that's why I made it so it looks like this. And I also used washi tape and some vintage metallic orange paper. I know, such an eclectic mix. But that's the cool thing about this. And did I mention the mother of pearl or mop button, smallest button in the middle? That's the thing with this, is you could be as creative as you want to be and use whatever you want. It's your things, it's your design. And as you can see, the button, I could go ahead and sew it through, which I actually might do that. I might sew it because it's like right here. It's easy to get to. So I think I am going to go that extra mile and actually sew through that with some black, probably my Coats and Clark thread, just because it's a little bit thicker. And then it was, all about gluing, and obviously washi tape is a tape, so it's taping. And then what I did, just to sort of highlight this a little bit, I don't like using that ink where you make like fake antique paper, or I know some people will use teas and coffees to stain the paper. Nothing wrong with any of that. It's just not what I do. I think my style is a mixture of the modern with the vintage and the antique. So I sort of like using all the styles, but I do try to keep things as pure as I can. So because I do have a collection of ephemera and vintage paper, so that ephemera and vintage paper, in my opinion, you know, it really shouldn't need help to shine. So this is what I have. And this pocket, you would insert your items from behind. So behind her, you would put whatever you want in here. And this is large enough to put a photograph in. Yes, you have this area where you can label or make notes. Anywhere that you want to write, you can. This is what the back looks like. And I did reinforce this with an old piece of paper that is sort of like wallpaper. So that's why this is nice and stiff. And I actually went down into the envelope with it, so it's not just right here in this area, just to make it strong. And this is one that I did not decorate the back because the idea is that you would glue it onto your page and be able to use it that way. The other option is the person could decorate the back, or I could decorate the back, as well as I could add a tab so that this could be sewn in as a feature in a journal. So there's lots of options. My next one is this one. This one I had a lot of fun making. It is a long, skinny, rectangular pocket, and I have a, excuse me for my chair squeaking, but here it is like 3.5 inches wide. So obviously it is not the size of a standard envelope. I actually folded this so that it was something that was skinnier and more rectangle. And on this one, I used some pieces of, I believe that this is either construction paper or it's scrapbook paper. And then I used some fancy vintage, what I consider to be sort of like an ice cream parlor candy stripe paper on the left and right side. And obviously you can see the lace, and the little cartouche was added at the bottom as well. And like I said, you could write sideways on this, obviously vertically, horizontally, upside down and backwards, however you want. Anywhere that you have a clear space, you can write. And this one, you put your items in here at the top, obviously. And if you pull that out, then what you see is a Cat's Meow Village envelope actually sewn, or sorry, glued inside of this envelope. So it's an envelope inside of an envelope. And I just basically used the graphic. And also I used enough of this Cat's Meow Village envelope to cover the entire inside of this envelope, so that when you look at it just as a visual thing, there's some texture there. You can see the little wrinkles in the wax paper, and I just sort of like that look. And on the back, it simply looks like this. I did not decorate the back because, once again, this is one that I would glue in, but you could go ahead and decorate and cover the back, create a flap so that this could be like an over the page pocket. I mean, you could get as creative as you want with these. You really, really can. You could turn it sideways. Now, sideways, it's going to be relatively long. It's going to be like 9 inches, a little over 9 inches long. So you just have to, you know, look at your book and decide, do you want this sticking out or do you want it completely tucked in? Either one is 100% correct. So this is what this one looks like. And here we have one that was so much fun for me to make. This was actually made from a book, and actually the name of the book is The Tree in the Wood. And this is a vintage book from the 1960s. I believe it's 1963. This version, I guess, of it anyway. And with this, this door is from somewhere else completely different. I actually just took some of the pages. I used a page that had a bunch of tree, like, I just like the look of like these logs, the tree trunks. And then, of course, the top, the canopy of the tree, I deconstructed and ironically put the canopy down below and put the trunks up above. Just be creative, do you. And then I found this door in a book about counting for kids, and it's from 1964, and I cut this sort of like a secret garden. I guess we'll give that the name of this envelope. Will have a theme. So what I also did is a bunch of like fancy cutting, like this half circle. I have a bunch of fancy cut scissors that I use. Like this is a pair here, and on the scissors it will actually show you what the designs are. I did not use those scissors for this. I just grabbed the first pair just to show you guys what they look like. And then what I did is also did the same thing at the bottom and on the back, not decorated, because I'm not sure if I want this to be one that I would sew in as a feature. So I actually created this flap just in case I decide to use it as a sew-in feature. And if I do that, then I have to decorate the back so that when this is in the book and it's being flipped back and forth, the back looks as nice as the front. But if I don't decide to use this as a feature or something that will be sewn in, then, or signature as they sometimes call them, then what I would do is simply, I would leave it exactly as it is, glue this entire back and, you know, put it in the book. So I sort of tried to leave options for myself. And this is obviously where you would put your goods, your little secret treasures. This one I went a little bit crazy on when I made it, and this one what I did is I used this one basically has a sheet music theme, so we'll just go with that. But the sheet music theme, the reason why I did that is this sheet music, as you can see, the font, it is purple. I was like so excited when I saw that. And then on this side, the font is what? Green. So seeing the colored font is not something you normally see, and that's because people are just printing out copies. So they're just using copies. I think it's called CVC, whatever these different duplicates are, and this is authentic to the period. It's dated it's in Roman numerals, but I know this is like from the 1920s. And so you have like authentic ephemera here. And when you get that, then you normally, and sometimes, yes, there's a lot that's in the cream colored paper with black font, but there's a lot that's also in colored font and you lose that. But anyway, and look at this beautiful decorative border that's going around. This is part of the sheet music. I didn't do anything to recover that. And what I did is I took this blue paper and this pink paper, and I like sort of having some cohesion. So that's why you'll see this is just a peekaboo. This piece does nothing except for goes with this tab. And the idea, and you can see I folded this so that it can be sewn in as a signature or a feature. And I did that so that you can use this tab to flip back and forth. You could write on the tab, obviously, as well. You could write anywhere that you want. And I did a little decorative cutting with actually the pair of scissors I just showed you. That's this design. And I did this semicircle where I cut that out just once again versus just having a straight line just to give some visual interest. The other thing I did is versus taking this blue paper and bringing it all the way to the edges, I love this border, so I wanted to show it off as much as possible. So versus, you know, just bringing it right to the edge or right to the top and bottom, I left a border all the way around. And then if you flip it over, you will see that, which I don't know if you guys recognize this, but this is the tape that's used to hold a Ferrero Rocher candy box. They're, what are they called? They're, so if you have the lucite boxes, then they always are sealed with this tape. And remember, I also use my lucite boxes to store my buttons in. And so I was like, you know what? It reminds me of washi tape. So I actually used a piece of that I had saved and, you know, put that down there as just as something, you know, different visual to look at. And here I actually have pieces of decorative paper, and once again, just to have some cohesion, there's a piece at the top, a piece at the bottom, and also, you know, that these are pockets. So I am able to take items and store them in the front right here. So here you have a pocket, and then you flip this over, and here you have a secret pocket. So, and these are very deep, as you can see, especially this one on the back. So that's another thing. When you're making these, your pockets, you might want them to have different depths. So here I have, put you back in there, another pocket I made. And yes, you guys, I made all of these in 2 hours. I believe it was actually less than 2 hours because I made like 3 other things that I'm not showing you right now in that same time period. And I also was working on the back and front covers and the spine of like a cover that I'm going to use for a future book. So all of that I was able to do in 2 hours and also come out with these. Now this I should have cut right here, which I did not. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now because it should be the same shape as this beautiful washi tape that came with a package from the Closet Historian. Okay, so there you go. That's been cut. Just gonna move that out of the way. Looks much better. And that's one of the things that I do when I'm making like these things is I will go over them like 2 or 3 times just to make sure they're as perfected as I want them to be. So this is what this looks like in full. And this is a combination of a pocket as well as, I guess I'll call it a deconstructed, converted version of a belly band because it really isn't. It's more like a folder. So here what I did is I actually, once again, flipped this, you could tell, similar envelopes. And I will tell you, these envelopes came from the IRS. I'll tell you that. So every time you get one, it'll look like this. And if it doesn't look like that, be suspicious. But anyway, what I did with this is once again, flipped it inside out because, hello, that sort of mid-century modern vibe that I like. And then I have this vintage foil paper on the inside, and you can see the texture of this paper is so cool with the ridges. And it almost reminds me of a really, honestly, gaudy, but somehow you might find it fabulous wallpaper. And what I did is I glued that inside. So when this, if you want me to show you how I created one of these, leave comments down below. And if I get 6 or more comments, I will give you, I'll just show you how I make one of them, and I'll do it as a fancier one and show you a little bit of my ephemera. And we will put one of these together. But so what I did is, like I said, I glued that on the inside, and that's when it's deconstructed. Then what I also did is I cut this heart shape out, and I also, once again, reinforced this. So you can't just like cut your shape out and be like, I'm done. If you don't reinforce it over time, this is going to rip off, the wear and tear. It's just not going to look good, and it won't remain stiff. So you do need to reinforce it. And I use this wallpaper-like paper to reinforce it. Then I used a permanent gold metallic marker to sort of make a shadow behind it. I used a abalone shell button here in the center, and look at those colors, absolutely stunning. One of the things I am going to go back and do to this one as well as to this one is I am going to go through and sew through the buttons just to give it like that extra oomph or chutzpah. I didn't do it because, like I said, I made these in 2 hours, and as I look at things, that's when I sort of decide to adjust. Hello, Closet Historian. This is really super cute. And then what I did is I used a piece of vintage, I believe it might be scrap paper, and I created this folder so that you can, you know, put things in the little folder, you know, put them upside down, backwards, but I also left a lip here so that this can be sewn in a book as a feature. Or if you don't want it to be a feature, you can simply glue it down on a page. But I did also use my corner cutter to sort of just give some decorative curves to the corners. And then you could see these corners, I went a little bit geometric with that. So what, as I always say, I think it's going to, oh, and don't forget the little peekaboo lace wings that are here. Love, it flies into your heart. So, you know, and I use my metallic marker around the button just to highlight it. This one is a favorite for its simplicity as well as its sort of cheekiness. This one, I have this cutout, which is from the 1920s, and it is a devil playing the piano with bubbles coming out of it. Go figure, he's a magician. And what I used here, I actually used gold washi tape, and I used that just to cover the seam, even though this is glued down. It just looks better than if this was, you know, had nothing there in the center. And this is another envelope which I turned inside out because, hello, those checks on a diagonal are super cool. If I wanted to go crazy on this, every other check I would color in with a color so that it would definitely have that, you know, 1920s vibe to it. Here I used some decorative paper, which I attached inside the envelope. And this is something you'll be surprised. What? Yes, it's also on the inside of the envelope or the pocket. And then you can simply put a photograph in here, more, you know, different decorative papers, miscellaneous items, whatever you want. Yes, it's kind of ironic. I have these cute little butterflies in there, but this is also a little thing from when from the dog's tags, actually our dog that we have right now. So our dog tags came in this, and I was like, you know what, let me make a little over the page pocket out of this. And that's what I did. I just simply, you know, cut the corners with my fancy cutter, added some butterfly paper, added a single butterfly cut out here. I used a permanent marker just to go around the edge, just to give it a little bit of contrast. I think I told you guys I'm not really into that fake antiquing where they use the ink, the coffee, the tea. Nothing at all wrong with any of those methods. I mean, this has some paint on it, watercolor. You could do whatever you desire, but because I do try to use vintage antique ephemera type products or things that I've had or inherited or whatever, I, you know, try not to go overboard with the fake antiquing. But once again, not to say I'll never do it, nothing wrong with it. So this one is definitely more modern. It has this very cool lady. It has, I don't know, like I put this little tab on here, which I think I might put some ribbon through. I might leave it as is. I just used some watercolor, went around the edge, did some decorative cutting with my scissors in each corner, and you don't have to do all 4 corners, just do a couple, see how you like it. I created this fringe out of that cool metallic wallpaper like paper. Oh, and upside down, I decided to add this, this came from a book, what you see inside. And the way that you enter this is simply right over the top, nothing fancy. Once again, I did not decorate the back of this one. Why? Because this will definitely be glued down in a book. I already have a plan for this. The word important actually came from a magazine. And yeah, decorative cut with a scissors, some glue, and it is done. And I think you could see like my modern take on these. is probably different than most people, like what you'll see out there, and there's nothing wrong with being different. As a matter of fact, diversity is the spice of life. So this is something I went a little bit wild on. It is a folder, it is a notebook, and it is a pocket. And yes, it goes over the page, so you stick it right over your page in your book or journal or whatever. And what I did with this is I have a ridiculous number of stamps. So I used some of my stamps dedicated to space. This is actually a NASA seal in the, I'm sorry, Apollo mission seal from NASA in the center. And I also used some ribbon on this. And once again, you see some golden washi tape. You flip this over, and then what you end up with is this notebook inside. The reason it's a notebook is if you open this, the paper is clean and clear. So you could write until your heart's content. And in the back, you are connected. And here you can see the word business journal at the bottom. And then if you turned it this way, flip that back over, we have a decorative pocket here. So this pocket, as you can see in the back, it has this pretty floral sort of, I don't know, leaf motif paper. But like I said, it is a pocket. And the other thing is this envelope is vintage. It says Par Avion. It is from a jewelry, actually a gem jeweler in Europe. And I don't know if you could see the postmark, but that's the postmark. So it was, you know, this went to Europe, and this one is actually 1980. So not as old as one would think, but look at how interesting that looks. And there's also another pocket here. So it's a double pocket. It flips over the page. It has a notebook. It has everything but the kitchen sink in it. And this was really fun to make because with this one, I wanted to see how far I could go. And then here I have these, which I will show you at the same time. I think they're super cute. The one that has the bow on it, this bow is actually a cutout. This is 1920s music. And once again, I love the stripes on the inside of this envelope. So it was one where I simply turned the envelope inside out. These beautiful decorative edges, you could see those down at the bottom. I cut those with the scissors. This one reminds me of like the 1920s, 1930s. On the back, once again, this will be glued onto a page, and I have plans for this. So that's why I did not decorate the back. This one is an over the page pocket. So right through the back here is where you would put your goodies. And I should have double checked to make sure. Yep, there you go. So you put your goodies right in there, but it looks good on the front as well as in the back. And then what you see here is my little over the page like holder. And I simply made this by folding paper, gluing. You do want to like glue maybe like an inch down so that it sits right over the top of that page, like so. It's not going anywhere. It's sort of like a bookmark also. And then I use actually some stickers I had. I just used a permanent marker to sort of highlight things and, you know, make little bits and bobs there. But what I'm going to do with these, I have some brads, and I'm going to stick the brads through these two holes just to make it look a little more decorative. Inside, I glued some pretty cool paper. And yeah, that's what this is. And I, once again, shored this up using that wallpaper-like paper so that it's nice and stiff. So if you want me to show you how I made any of these, please, once again, and especially some of the simpler ones, I can easily show you guys how to make those quickly. And you can just, like I said, go wild with this. It's so much fun. And I thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Velvet Lounge Life. Please remember that your health is your wealth, and without your health, you have absolutely nothing. So please take care of yourselves. Have a great day. Watch our videos. Enter our free drawing. The details will be in the comments as well as the description of this video. Be well and enjoy your day.